the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network presents Worldview Media Podcast, where Gordon and Joyce Runyon view popular media through the lens of the biblical five-point covenant model to help believers appreciate and apply principles of exciting narrative and engaging storytelling.
Let's go! Worldview Media Podcast.
Okay. Oh.
Back in your life. After a long hiatus. Here we are.
It just doesn't even seem like it's been any time at all.
It's the Worldview Media Podcast. The return edition.
The edition, just the return.
Why were we gone so long?
It
doesn't feel like I've been gone at all.
You know, it was really weird because we were all just kind of doing our thing and we were sitting around thinking, man, we got a podcast. And all of a sudden,
What?
well, we were back. We were thinking, oh yeah, we want a podcast. And all of a sudden, it's been what, a year? Like
5 years.
5 years? Like someone just snapped their fingers and we were all gone.
And now all the cool kids are calling it the snap.
Yeah, the blip.
The blip.
The blip.
Alright, well it should be the snap if they're really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've all just come back. And everyone around us has aged 5 years.
Yeah. It's a good thing you went.
You couldn't tell.
So here we are, Worldview Media Podcast. And we are going to do a worldview analysis of Spider-Man's European Vacation.
No.
What's the
Far
real-
from home.
Far from home.
On a European vacation.
Wasn't there like a cartoon mouse show that was called that? Far from home. Some cartoon.
It was Bible.
Fivel home.
No.
No. It's just an American tale.
Yeah, there's nothing to do with far from
But he
home.
was far from home because they immigrated from Russia.
See,
Yeah.
totally. It was-
They were Jewish mice.
Yeah.
That's not the movie.
They
we're
came
here to talk
over
about.
from Russia.
That's not the movie we're here to talk about.
But they were far from
They
where
were-
they started.
But that's the same thing as like E.T.
But
All
then
right,
they
this
went-
could go on for
Yeah, if we're gonna do it
literally
by that, then
ever.
that's E.T.'s the same movie. Transformers is the same
Oh.
movie.
We have to reintroduce
Transformers.
ourselves.
Care Bears.
Care Bears.
Yep.
You've been watching Care Bear movies?
Fight me.
Let's reintroduce ourselves. My name is Gordon Runyon. I am the chief and obvious boss and high commander.
I think you should introduce everybody.
Sure.
To my right is the wife of my youth, the illustrious Joyce Runyon. Hello.
Hello.
Straight across from me on your podcast screen
Diametrically opposed.
is my oldest daughter, Carmen. Hello.
Hello.
And on the left of your podcast dial is my middle daughter, Jordan. Hello.
Hello.
We're here to do a Worldview Media Podcast sort of analysis on Spider-Man Far From Home.
That's right.
If you're coming back from the blip with us, you know what we do here. And if you aren't, and you're just now coming for the first time, I'm sorry. So
Yeah, where y'all been? Y'all been on a hiatus?
You had 5 years to catch up.
yeah. Correct.
5 years.
Okay, so Spider-Man Far From Home takes place fairly quickly after the events of Avengers Endgame.
I heard that it was about 8 months.
Yeah.
8 months.
Very.
So Peter Parker is going on a school trip to Europe to compete in the worldwide
Oh no, he's just
champion
no, he's just
Jeopardy.
going-
No.
What?
There's no competition.
They're just going on a science trip to like visit like they were gonna go to Italy and stuff
Yeah, it was
because of
the-
Italian scientists
yeah.
to go see the Galileo Museum.
The
and-
history of science in Europe.
Okay, so then they meet up with a nice man named Mysterio, who
Well, did you watch the movie?
Mysterio was apparently a big fan of the Incredibles movie, and
And he thought it'd be cool
To do it in real life.
to, to do
he's
it in real
taking
life.
he's taking Syndrome's plot and making it real.
Yeah.
So he's a deceiver, he's an illusionist, and he is going to create crises that don't really exist.
Ooh, I guess we should have said spoilers before we
Spoilers.
started
Oh,
talking.
spoilers. And then
Don't talk about it.
Syndrome flies in and takes care of all the crises, and
Yeah.
everybody loves Syndrome.
Yeah.
Mysterio.
Yes.
No relation to Rey Mysterio, the professional wrestler. At least, if there is a
none that we
connection,
know of.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But that's part of the
something.
illusion.
So it takes Spider-Man a little bit of time to figure out that Mysterio is really a bad guy, and
Yeah.
he has to save the world because Mysterio really does destroy a bunch of stuff, and he gets hold of Tony Stark's.
Infamous
This
glasses.
is something that we're going to have to talk about seriously, because Mysterio gets hold of Tony Stark's technology, and with it, he can pretty much destroy the world.
Yeah. All the drones and stuff in space.
And so, Spider-Man obviously loses his fight, and the world is destroyed.
And he gets to be just a kid.
Right.
And then it's like, well, oh well. Just
And
gotta.
there will be no more superhero movies, because the world is destroyed.
Yeah. Spider-Man let
Well,
everybody
because
down.
of people not signing and extending contracts with other people, but that's another topic.
The real villain here.
Who is the real villain?
Corporate
Sony?
America.
Okay, so let's talk about what you thought about overall movie, just as a standalone movie or as an entrant into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Give me your just your thoughts on the movie, how you liked it, what you didn't like.
I liked it. I don't think I liked it as much as the first Spider-Man movie that they did with these same people and stuff. But I thought it was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was a good movie.
What was your favorite part about it?
I thought Ned was really funny.
Spider-Man's sidekick, Ned.
Yeah. Ned was a good time.
Stole the show. Anybody else? General thoughts?
I thought it was a really good continuation. So the thing that I feel that Marvel has set themselves up for now is that all of the movies tie together. So all of the movies have to keep tying together.
Yeah.
And especially with this being the first thing that they've done after Endgame. You
Yeah.
know, Endgame was a huge thing. And so now, you know, I left Endgame and I was like, you know, first I was in the void of the blip. Yeah, I was like, well, where am I? But then I was like, you know, how do you continue from this? Like, they lost a huge amount of their big players,
Yeah.
you know, these characters that we're used to. So what do you
Some
do
big
from here?
shakeups, yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't expecting the continuation from that to be in Comic Sans font with, like, Getty Images water stamps, you know.
Yeah, that was a good scene that he completely
You know,
bypassed.
but just with the song, you know.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it's I think it's a good continuation. I really do like Spider-Man. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Every movie I've seen him in, he's made me cry. So
Yeah.
you know, I think it was really good.
For being after Endgame, I really kind of thought it was a lighter movie.
Mhm.
It could have been a lot darker. It could have been a lot more serious. It could have
even
been a
with
lot
the
more.
villains, it was still
Yeah.
they were kind of goofy.
So it
Yeah.
was it was refreshing in that aspect. because it wasn't as heavy as it could have been, and they did have some moments built into the script with the reflection and the responsibility shifts that have happened. But overall, I thought it was a really light movie, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, there's a lot of really neat visuals in it too. Like you keep seeing the murals in the background of the heroes and stuff, and all these different headlines. I've watched this movie 3 times, so I watched it a lot of times. And every time you watch it, try
Pick
and
up
find
on something else.
find something new. But just all of the references they have to all of these different heroes and the universe they're in. Some of the shots are just really pretty. I mean, they're in Europe, so it's going to be really pretty. But I think they put it to really good use.
All right. So obviously this movie doesn't get done without CGI, right?
Yeah.
Like many superhero movies. We get superhero movies because of CGI, so that's nice.
Yeah.
If y'all had been around back before CGI when they made superhero movies.
When they made any movie
I've seen some of those movies.
that was science fiction.
Oh, man.
That was fiction.
All
Think of
right.
the Sinbad movies and the...
Oh, yeah. Right.
Oh, and Jason and
Claymation.
the Argonauts with
Yeah.
the skeleton men.
I kind of like those though.
Stop action photo.
Well, it's fun to go back and see. But technology really does make a difference, as we'll find out in this movie.
There you go. All right. Anything else to say on a general note? All right. Then we will take our short break, and when we come back, we will dig in to dismantling this.
Bringing it closer to home.
Oh.
Yes. What is far will be brought near. Back in a bit.
The Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network brings to you a complete lineup of podcasts where you will hear practical and tactical theology. Our desire is not simply that you consume our shows, but that you also live out your faith in every area of life. We can talk all day long about these things, but if we fail to put them into practice, then we fail as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, our King. Subscribe now to your favorite Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network shows, or you can subscribe to the Reconstructionist Radio Master Feed, where all of the content we produce, including the audiobooks and audio articles, will pop up as soon as they are available. And don't forget to visit ReconstructionistRadio.com to volunteer as a narrator or to partner with this ministry financially. May the Holy Spirit stir you into action for Christ and His kingdom.
Okay. And we're back, Worldview Media Podcast, part of the Reconstructionist
Every time we
Radio Podcast Network.
Ah.
Let's bring it in. Put your hands in here.
Oh,
Bring it in. Bring it in.
why?
Mama.
Just so they know.
Reconstructionist
Yeah.
Radio on 3.
Oh no.
1, 2, 3. Reconstructionist Radio. Y'all were not terribly enthusiastic. I hope that did not make its way into the recording.
Probably did.
Your lack of enthusiasm.
I'm
I thought you meant
enthusiastic.
just you can fix that. You can completely edit that.
I'm enthusiastic about
The process.
yeah,
All right, let's
process.
get into it then.
Okay.
Worldview issues. What did you see in this movie that has anything to do with exposing the worldview of the makers or anything that you think is interesting from a worldview standpoint?
So,
Doesn't-
you go first.
I was just gonna say, it doesn't matter where in the movie it is, just
No.
bleh. All right, go ahead.
So
Carmen has 5.
I have a lot. So, I think one of the interesting things to see in this movie, is kind of how grief gets addressed. You know that that all these people that were gone, are suddenly back, and you know that there's people who didn't come back, that didn't, that aren't here anymore. And I think that's kind of interesting to see because you don't see really that. We're gonna, you know what? I'm gonna rip the band-aid off. No spoiler alert. Tony Stark's dead. And if you watch the movies up until this point, Tony Stark has been a really big influence in Peter Parker's life. And despite that, we don't really get to see him address that kind of directly until almost the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That he just kind of continues. But you can see hints of it where he's at the benefit for all these people that have been displaced. That he kind of starts having a little bit of a panic attack, and when they start talking about responsibility, that he goes back to Tony saying,
Who's
I'm
going to
just,
be the next person?
He's like, that's not me. And I think that's the thing you see with grief, that this person is gone now. Who fills that spot? And then there were interesting things I thought with that they have to have benefits now for all these people that were replaced. That Peter and his aunt come back to their apartment, and there's another family living in their apartment.
That's rude.
Yeah, which is rude. The
It's been 5 years, man.
The kids that were left behind are, still kids, but now all of a sudden your relationships with all these different people have changed. So, and it's not like everybody died, but in some sense that there was something that's gone now, and they're not going to get that back. And I also thought that there's a lot to unpack with Mysterio, from a Fury sort of space, that he's a con man and a con artist, and it's all a big show, and that he's got all of these followers that have come up with him, that are buying into the scheme and empowering him to do this, and then where he switches it, and now that they have to do this because they've given him all of this control, that you've
got the power.
Yeah, you've put the wrong person in charge. But then also how he sees that spot where Peter is lacking something and comes in and tries to fill it, and Peter lets him come in and fill it. So then there's the issue with, once you lose that important figure in your life, what do you let come in and replace that, and what are you going to put your kind of faith in?
Yeah, since there's a void, what's going to fill that?
Yeah, and what was Tony, I think, gets filled by Mysterio, and then Peter kind of realizes that's not what he needs, and then he
needs more discernment.
He needs more discernment, which he fills in with his spider sense, what's it called? His Peter Tingle. That he has to come to terms with the fact that right now he has to learn how to address the world on his own, and take responsibility and make those plans that he's been fortunate enough to not have to do.
Well, and the reality is that he's still a kid.
Yes.
So that's a lot on anybody, but especially as a kid.
Yeah. And there are issues with Tony's big machine, but I'm sure we'll talk about that.
The machine in the sky.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't bother me so much until I started thinking about doing this podcast, and I realized that what Tony Stark had built, the giant satellite in the sky that is capable of sending out lethal drones that can assassinate people by name, just at the command of whoever has the glasses. So basically, Tony Stark built the very same thing that Captain America was fighting in the Winter Soldier, when he was fighting the helicarriers.
Yeah.
And it's just now a better guy is in charge of this floating assassination technology.
For the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there's something really to be said about that, about the way the world looks at power and coercive power and threatening power and the power to do violence. I think the unbelieving way of looking at all that is saying, well, that's all unnecessary evil, and the best we can do is just put the better people in charge. And so it would have been bad to have, who was that guy in the Winter Soldier? What was the name of the director? Robert Redford.
It was just Robert Redford.
What was his name?
You don't want to put Robert Redford in charge because he's about to wipe out, millions of people. But we can have the same technology in the hands of Tony Stark, and now we'll all feel better. But it's obvious that he created this technology that you can literally name somebody and the satellite will launch a drone to come down and kill them.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think any of the other Avengers knew about this either.
Well, I would hope
You
not.
know, so
Captain America would not be pleased.
he would not have been happy.
Captain Libertarian, he would be upset. So I thought that was a really interesting thing, and I think the biblical solution to a thing like that is that no, you get rid of that technology altogether. You don't have the floating kill station in the sky that can just assassinate people that are undesirable or whatever your whim is. And the solution isn't to just put better people in charge of it. The solution is to get rid of it and replace it with the system of government in the kingdom, which is that leadership comes through service, and whoever would be great among you must become the slave of all. And if we really took that seriously and did that, there wouldn't be a need for these orbiting murder machines. I couldn't believe Tony Stark had even made that.
I wasn't.
I was thinking, what in the world?
I was not surprised.
I guess he made Ultron.
Yeah, you know, if you
He's
do
always
Ultron,
missing something.
well, and that a lot of that. I mean, we can do a whole podcast on just Tony Stark. I mean, I could, but the thing is that he's never felt. I don't know. I think that he always has sort of felt insecure, and that that there's always sort of been this sort of danger that he's never going to be prepared for. And I don't know if that stems from getting kidnapped.
He's always tweaking everything.
Yeah.
Well, this works now.
It's
but
never good enough.
Yeah, that he sees where things are weak, and like we can fix this and move better and progress and progress and progress.
Isn't that kind of also true of Batman in the DC comics?
A little bit.
Doesn't he have the floating final
Well,
They
option
have, that's the
thing?
Watchtower, and that's the whole Justice League. But I don't think it's.
But he does have those contingency plans
Yeah.
about how he would murder all of his teammates in case they went bad.
And that's
But if he had the, like, if Batman decided that the world has to be destroyed or the population has to be reduced in order to save the universe or something like that.
Batman wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Superman would. I think Superman has. In a different universe, I think Superman has done something like that, but I don't think Batman would let it get to that point.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff with Tony that when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, of course he did that. But
it wasn't shocking.
Yeah, it wasn't shocking. I was like, yeah. But my kind of thinking is that he probably made it to do that, but that was probably never how he intended it to be used.
Yeah.
Because he never intended Ultron to go and, do that it was supposed to be, like
Just like a network.
yeah, just peacekeeping sort of things that they could go in and, non-lethal sort of stuff. But of course, nothing ever works the way that you plan it to. If you give it the potential to do something, it's going to do it worse than that. So
The
Right.
fallen nature of
Which
things.
is kind of what I was just saying, that Tony Stark was just a better sort of power religionist than Robert Redford.
Oh.
That bad guy.
What was his name?
That villain.
Just
I'll
like
have to
in
look
real
it up.
life. It was
Pierce,
Director
Pierce. Alexander Pierce.
There you go.
I knew.
Now it comes back. It was really Robert Redford.
But it was really
All right,
Robert
any
Redford.
other worldview issues on your mind?
I really do think there's a lot with Mysterio that
Yeah. Well, I think there's stuff with what is reality.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that's definitely in there, that he can manipulate these projectors to have it look like something is going on, and that's a real deal in our world today, where people are saying, well, how can I know what I'm living isn't a simulation? How can I know what's real truth, because this is
Yeah.
what it appears to be to me? And do you have that same perspective that I do? Does it matter if we have the same perspective? How can we know any perspective is true?
Exactly.
That wasn't even where I was going with it. But where I was going with it was the whole that he's that he sees, he kind of says it that Tony Stark's gone. They want the next Tony Stark. I'm going to be the next Tony Stark. I'm going to give it, and he makes the disasters for him to solve.
Well, to
And,
appear.
Yeah, to appear like he solved it.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking about it, and there's no way that he would be able to keep that up in like like a Battle of New York situation, where these aliens show up out of nowhere.
Oh, when a real threat
Yeah,
came
when
up.
a real thing comes up that he's supposed to come and do this,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, wouldn't he then just use the same technology? So
Yeah.
he's got the drones.
But you see them practicing.
Yeah.
You know, that they set up all of the holograms and all of the effects
they have
and
to
all of
rehearse.
the, yeah, they
And-
rehearse it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have a script that they go off of
Right.
that, like, they're editing real time when things go wrong. But, you know, when some random alien attack comes
Right.
out of nowhere, he's not going to have that set up.
Well, I kind of had the same thought about that your mom did. That, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson hosted an entire symposium on the question of, are we living in a computer simulation? And I like to point out that he's quoted in that article, I think it's Popular Science or something, but he's quoted in the article as saying that he believes the odds are at least 50-50 that the reality that he experiences is really a simulation. And he's the smartest guy in the whole world, you know. And
What?
and Christians, are we stuck with that? The answer is no. And why? Because we have what's called a revelational epistemology. Our knowledge is given to us by God. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and that means that the earth we live on is the one God made, and we know it's real because he said it. And without that, you're really stuck in a world where you can't be sure of anything.
Yeah.
There was another thing that I saw, I don't know if you remember it, but Zendaya, her
MJ.
one of the character quirks about this iteration of MJ is that she gets kind of a kick out of telling inconvenient truths. She's like that guy Adam ruins everything.
Oh yeah.
That's what she does. She tells inconvenient truths and then just kind of basks in the awkwardness that results.
Yeah.
And most of what she says, I think, is true. But there was one place where somebody said something, this is objectively true. And she said something like, I can't quote her, but she said, well, actually, around the world, nobody really believes in objective truth anymore. Or the belief in objective truth is being given up all around, or something like that. And that's like a high, soft pitch coming your way that you ought to be able to just slap out of the park. What's the answer? So, MJ, is that statement objectively true? And so I just noticed that, kind of laughing. I just wish somebody would write that in sometime.
Well, and then I'm back on Mysterio. I'm going to be stuck on Mysterio for a little bit, but then he's almost making himself into like a false god sort of thing too. And that, you know, I'm going to give them something to look for or to. I'm going to give them the hero they want and stuff like that. And there's a lot of research that's been done into the concept of the superhero myth being taken from the old
Pantheons of
pantheon
Greece.
myths. You know, and you even see some of those characters in superheroes.
Right.
So there's some stuff there too that you could talk about. But
Yeah.
we probably gotta truck along. I don't know. Anybody else?
Jordan, do you have anything worldviewish?
Well, I guess.
Okay.
Well, okay.
All right.
Well, I was kind of thinking about Peter and how his whole thing seems to be that he sort of is like his whole stress the whole movie is that he's not really like worthy of this new like task that he's been given, this new role that he sort of finds himself in, and that Tony Stark wanted him to fill, and that he's not gonna measure up to this like task that he's been set on, and that's sort of what is causing him to make like questionable decisions and not, you know, because he feels like he is like not where he needs to be in order to get the thing done. But then at the end when he's talking to Happy's just like, look, you just have to like be who you are and that's what we've been wanting, just be you in this new role, you know, like, you don't have to try to be some other person.
Yeah.
Because that's not what Tony wanted. He just wanted you to be who you are, and that was gonna be
That was enough.
that was gonna be the thing that you needed, like, to just don't try to be me. Try to just be the hero that you are, not the hero that I was. You know.
So how's that apply then? What could we say if we were gonna take that as a truism and shape that?
Well, I think it's real easy to overlook your own gifts and your talents when you're looking around you and you can see somebody else and say,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not that person. And absolutely, you're not that
Right.
person. But you have things that that person doesn't have. And
Right.
so you just need to, you know, especially within the church body, that we're all different parts and all those parts are important and they work together. And so there's not any reason that you should feel less than somebody else or that somebody should elevate themselves over you because they've got more showy things or they're able to do things differently. And so
Right.
it goes back to, you know, what you're saying about being a servant and using those things to have God's kingdom grow and not to grow yourself.
So when you were saying that, it was making me think of Gideon.
Oh yeah.
You know, that he gets.
He didn't believe he was
Yeah,
worth being called.
He's like, no,
Right.
somebody else, no.
Well, and even like Moses and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah, right.
too.
Yeah.
Just like the you don't if you have the calling, then that's the
That's
thing
it.
you got to do.
That
And
should be
it's-
enough to move forward.
Yeah,
with.
just
Yeah.
being
Because you have to
given.
remember who called you.
Yeah, being
Tony
placed
Stark.
in the situation should be enough to say, okay, this is my new situation.
Right.
And also, it's not worldview, but it's a fanatic thing that when you were saying that Tony, you know, so in the first Spider-Man, it was all Peter Parker saying, just let me be the real Avenger and
Oh.
stuff like that. And now in this movie, he's saying,
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do it.
Well, he's had a lot of crazy things
He's had
happen
a lot
to
of
him
crazy
since
things,
then.
but, you
He
know,
wanted to
That's
just
part of
be
the job.
Spider-Man.
Those crazy things
Yeah.
are part
Well,
of the job.
I mean, he's still just a kid.
yeah. But I mean, he was how much younger before,
Yeah, it did flip flop for sure.
you know, that he,
Well, it's all a lot of fun until it's real.
yeah. Well, then maybe that could be the thing that you can see that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but not yet.
Yeah.
That it's not
Like, that's scary, though.
yeah, that it's not a no,
Yeah.
it's a wait, and then you just have to be
Yeah.
patient and believe
Right.
that that's what's gonna happen.
Wait to see those things.
Yeah, I kind of have a personal testimony in that. I won't take very long with it, but when I first believed that I was called to preach, one of the pitfalls I fell into was really studying and trying to absorb preaching from men that I thought were great preachers, and I still do, but the mistake I made was trying to be like them or kind of use some of their gimmick and make it work for me.
Yeah.
And it was actually a long time in my preaching career before I finally felt the freedom to just be me in the pulpit. And, you know, we'll find out on Judgment Day whether that was actually a good thing or not. But the results are mixed up to this point.
Too many sitcom references. I like those. Don't cut those out.
But the same would be true then if somebody hears me preach and they like something particular about the quote unquote style of it. If that's not natural to you, you better not do that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a long time, especially I think if you're wired right and you understand that whatever ministry it is that God called you to, it's not because you deserved it, and
Yeah.
and you probably are not yet qualified to get it all done. That's going to come as you work at it and stuff. And I think if you go into it with that kind of humbled or chastened view of your own gifts, then I think there's a temptation to try to beg, borrow, and steal from sources who seem to be doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing wrong with looking at people who are doing it right and trying to discern what is that they're doing and can I do something similar. nothing wrong with that. But I think when you begin to
Well, the only
say
image
my
we're
gifts aren't
supposed to be
great.
conformed to
Right.
is Christ, and not
Right.
anybody else around you. So
Right. So when I started preaching and I wanted to sound kind of more like this guy than like me, it never really sounded like that guy, and it didn't ever sound like me. It's some third chimera entity that needed to be slain. All right. Anything else on this wonderful cinematic masterpiece?
Or just some general thoughts now. Or
Just whatever.
so
If you have anything left to say.
I grew up watching the old 90s cartoons of all these superheroes, and I really liked the Mysterio sequence where he's like got him in the, the stuff and everything, because in the cartoons and stuff, Spider-Man would always be like, oh, it's Mysterio, it's just an illusion, none of this is real, and then immediately like fall for it as soon as he turned around. And they did that in the show, and I thought that was great. And it was a really something about the sequence really made me think of that it
flashback.
it referenced back to that really nicely for me. So I was like, they see this because they've said that they're trying to draw from all the previous versions of Spider-Man to make this Spider-Man.
Okay.
So it was nice to kind of see that highlighted.
Nice. All right. Anything else, or are we done?
Well, all the holographic stuff was based on that. Tony called it BARF.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the binary augmented retroframing. And that was done in order to help ease the psychological trauma of somebody in a situation. And, on the surface, that sounds good. But if you were just to step back into that time and just view it, does it change anything?
Right.
Does it resolve anything? Can you say anything different? Can you do anything that's going to make you feel better by the time you finish going through that segment? And I think it's not. There's nothing you can go back and adjust or say, oh, I should have done this, and that's going to make you feel better, because you can say that without actually stepping into that setting. So it just seemed very wallowing and just really not even able to help in any way.
Right. Well, I think we're already seeing, in a related way, we're seeing that video games and stuff and virtual reality video games with the glasses and the noise canceling headphones, so that all your senses are receiving are the things that are being fed to you. I think as that gets better and better, there are people whose lives in reality suck so bad that they prefer to be immersed in this other quote-unquote reality.
But that's going to be,
now
that's different than what they were doing, because he was stepping back into a memory in order to...
Well, I'm just saying that it's the same sort of conundrum in terms of, at some point, is that even helpful, or does it begin to be confusing?
Well, I think that's the reason that video games are really popular among certain demographics. It's because it's an escape.
Yeah, sure.
But you're not escaping anything going back into those moments.
Well, but I think when we see him use that stuff in Civil War, I think the point of it was that he had been able to, like, tweak his own thing. Like, that wasn't, like, at the very end, like, that would have been something that he had programmed in, where he's talking to his dad and finally tells him, like, hey, I love you, and I know you did the best you could, and all that stuff. Like, that wasn't really what he said in his memory. Like, he never said that. But he was able to use the technology to, like,
pretend
that he said that, to work
The
through
closure
it.
sort of
Yeah,
thing.
like, to get closure by, like, seeing, I don't know. And then also...
But the better technology gets at that sort of thing, does it? Why believe the actual memory when you can replace it with this better one?
Yeah.
Well, again, that's the whole technology is inherently evil, and we can't trust the machines. The robots are coming.
That's really why we were gone so long. We've become Amish.
I've given them up. They're coming to get me.
All right. Well, let's cut this out. And I mean,
We're done.
put an end.
Cut it out.
We're back to the blip.
I've had it with all of you. It's time for us to draw an end to this. What would you call it? It's not a debut episode. It's a
review.
A review.
Actually,
Surely this is like season 2 now. This
Oh,
is the
cool.
premiere of
Yeah,
season 2.
here we go.
Season 2, episode 1, Worldview Media.
Jordan watches a lot of TV.
As per planned.
And so, as always, with Worldview Media Podcast, our hope is to inspire you. If you have creative leanings and you're seeking to use those leanings in a way that glorifies God, we're just trying to help you find where that lane is for you. Find your corner of the garden, use the gifts that God has given you, and dominionize.
Ooh. There it is.
Now it came back.
All right, next time, y'all. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Worldview Media Podcast. Please visit reconstructionistradio.com to check out the other podcasts in our network and to download our free audiobooks.